all this talk, the first ban is the Hecarim.
Oh yeah, and then the top lane respect continues with Sion being taken away as well, of course. Direwolves not wanting to see the immortal top laner in the hands of Swiper, who is arguably himself a very formidable top lane opponent. And it's actually just one of my favorite matchups in the whole of the OPL is Perfections versus Swiper, because they're so clearly the best in their craft.
The king of the meta versus kind of the perfectionist. That's terrible. I don't think these things through. I just say them, and sometimes everyone's shaking their heads. I'm sorry, guys, but he's so on
my
form.
Head with respect.
It's the mechanics. It's the mechanics that really separate him from other people. That's not to say Swiper isn't a great mechanical player, but it's what Perfection's all about. Even in normal games, I've played with this guy. He's always taking it seriously. He's always trying to make himself a better player, whatever the venue. And it shows his CS values, his average CS, about 40 to 50 above the opponent. He's really on form. I thought the tank matchups were gone last series when we saw the Malphite and Sion bans. But we still saw the double tank. It still was the Maokai matchup in the top lane. But as the bans come through, some of these other top lane champions being banned away.
Oh my goodness, and I wasn't expecting this. Word on the street after Radier's first Kalista match was that he probably wasn't going to play that champion again. Of course, they still did win, and things went great, but just wasn't a thing that they wanted to gamble with another time. But it is going to be locked in here for first pick, and that could actually just be aimed here at King, because King has shown a whole lot of prowess on basically anything he's been on. His farming is incredible, and his teamfight control, and especially his mechanical play in these 1v2, 1v3 situations that we saw in the OPL power plays. Man, he's just very, very strong.
I mean, Kalista's definitely a gamble. We've seen Kalistas lose in the OPL. We've seen Kalistas held down in lane, or a super tank being able to deal with it, because you have to remember a lot of the super tanks are banned out this game. And the thing about Kalista is there's some champions who have a high upside, right? That's just the natural state of League of Legends. There'll be some champions who have a tough laning phase, and they can potentially do things in the late game. The things Kalista can do in the late game, those Ren sets, they can win games. So you can see the amount of upside there justifies the risk in the pick. And even if Radier, maybe you think of him as a Corki player, not a Kalista player, why not go for something that has that upside to win them a game against top opposition like the Direwolves?
Yeah, and speaking of top opposition, they have made a very intelligent next pickup in their first round of picks here. Of course, Jarvan being taken away, and Spooks, he's got a lot of his victories on that Jarvan. Of course, was banned away in the last game, but 3-0 on that guy. And Soulstrike's going to take that one away, but Morgana being picked up. No Black Shield available for this Kalista, and that is a big deal.
And you have to think the Morgana probably would have been taken away by the Chiefs just to combine with the Kalista, as you say, so it's a smart adaptation. Of course, they have the flexibility of playing it in another lane. If I'm not mistaken, the last time these two teams met, was it the mid Morgana that came out against the Chiefs? So there is flexibility, but you throw your hands up because you see a certain Swiffer champion come through.
Yeah, how? What? People...
Calm down, okay. Use your words. Use your words. Come on. Slowly.
I just don't know how you leave Ahri up when Swiffer is in the game.
Okay, just remember, 5.3. So it's not superpower, let's win every lane Ahri. It's still very strong blind pick Ahri. So they've committed to what? Ostensibly their jungler, their AD carry, and their mid laner. So they will potentially be able to perhaps counter pick the top laner, which makes a lot of sense. But Direwolves, especially after the last situation, you can see the top lane counter pick coming to Perfection.
Yeah, well, Perfection can do whatever he likes now because he's seen the Maokai, and even Sharp, I mean, he's in, no way inhibited from his choice. I mean, he gets to decide what he takes against Ahri. Skill matchup, most likely. They're in that mid lane, and they've decided to leave it. And King, he's going to lock away the Kog'Maw.
Wow. Actually, have we seen a Kog'Maw this season? Maybe one in the OPL? None?
None in the OPL.
The control room is saying one. So Kog'Maw hasn't been a big pick. You can see they got Janna Morgana, so definitely the peel is happening already for the Direwolves. They do have the makings of a protect the Kog'Maw comp. You just have to wonder, well, I mean, the Morgana is definitely going to a lane, and we've just seen Perfection absolutely run over a top Morgana as Hecarim. So will it be the repeat of the Morgana mid for the Direwolves? Will they leave that counter pick up for the top laner? I'm not sure right now, but I guess probably the biggest surprise to me, we didn't even mention some of these bans, the Xerath ban by Chiefs and then locking in Ahri. Given that they know Swiffer's an Ahri player, you don't want to pick Xerath with Ahri open and an Ahri main on the enemy team. So interesting to me that they banned that Xerath and then went with the Ahri. Why not just leave it up, ban away something else, maybe the Morgana, for example, and profit?
Yeah, or maybe they were just sort of hoping to be able to pick up that Morgana, but only 2 seconds remaining. Chiefs taking their time making their decisions. It is going to be Lee Sin and Leona locked away. Of course, Rosie's seen a lot of success. One of the champions that he's played more than once already, which is exciting. Going to be the 3rd time on that Leona, of course, with a 100% win rate, but every single game they have a 100% win rate, so it doesn't even really matter that much. And Spook's back on a very comfortable Lee Sin. And this guy has been sitting on Jarvan, Lee Sin, and Rek'Sai just this whole time. He's like, yep, okay, top meta, we're fine.
I actually said this last time. It was Lee Sin twice in the first week, then it was Rek'Sai Jarvan, then it was all Jarvan, now all Lee Sin. So if definitely, it's a streaky player with these picks. He does wonderful things with the Lee Sin. He bossed around that early game. We're waiting for this last lock to come in. This would open up a top Morgana. Morgana versus Maokai, decent matchup, would be a fun matchup for both of them, and maybe the utility coming out from the Black Shield for that Kog'Maw will be enough. So I wouldn't mind seeing a hyper carry in the mid lane. It's a skill matchup to go Cassio. It's an aggressive choice to go Cassio. This is literally saying, King, please carry us to the promised land. Carry us to this big victory. And they're going to lock it in.
This is some CLG-type team comp making, ladies and gentlemen. The Lulu for the Wild Growth and the Whimsy Shield. You've got Janna for shields for days. You've got the Black Shield coming from Perfections now on this Morgana, and I'm really glad that it wasn't Sharp. Of course, the last time these guys faced off against one another, it was just Swiffer owning the show, because not a lot Morgana really does as far as impact in that lane. Just wants to farm it out, and Swiffer just had his way. I
would have been very surprised to see them, pick Morgana into Swiffer a second time, because again, allowing a playmaking player, a playmaking champion, and the chance to really take over a game, it didn't work out for them. So I mean, seeing Perfection on Morgana top is a big surprise, I guess. See him go instead of being the Hecarim or the Aurelia, those champions that can take over a game, going for the more passive option. It's so many eggs in King's basket. Can you really blame them, though, given he's top of the MVP ratings, I believe has the highest GPM, any of the kind of statistics, the outer game statistics, he's topping those lists. But there's 2 threat comps, and there's please Kog'Maw win us this game.
Yeah, exactly. But we've seen Kog'Maws be incredibly strong in the past, and it might be Direwolves' chance to sort of even the score here with the Chiefs, because of course 7-0, and if the Direwolves manage to win these next 2, they can make the Chiefs 7-1 and join them in that 7-1 point. But who do you think is going to win, ladies and gentlemen? Let us know via Twitter using the hashtag CHFWin or DWWin and send them on through. You can even pop in that hashtag IamOPL as well, if you like. I, of course, always do, even when I'm tweeting about dinner at my mum's or something like that. I just really like including that hashtag. So make sure you do that and let us know exactly who you think is going to take this game, because I personally don't know. Both of them with very clearly defined strategies going into this one, but we'll see who manages to get the tools to put it together.
And I really want all the viewers to make their voice heard, because it's a massive game. This is 7-0 takes on 5-1, potentially even going to pick up a win later, the Direwolves. So they're definitely on a winning streak. It's only Chiefs that unsettled them previously. We saw a bit of the flavor of that game, that top lane camp that Perfection was under. Will it be the same story on Morgana? Probably not. You look at Morgana and you're like, all right, maybe another lane.
Yeah.
But you look at a lot of these Direwolves lane, they picked very strong laners. Like Morgana, okay, she can't put on so much pressure, but she can at least counter-push quite well against this Maokai. Ganking a Lulu, that's frustrating, whether it's the laughs or just the speed, the whimsy walking away. It's not a lot of fun to do there. This Kog'Maw, though, I mean, it's shades of the GE Tigers in Korea. They love to run these Kog'Maw comps. This is basically Kog'Maw being completely enabled by his team. Let's talk about the kind of supportive abilities that will be available to put on this Kog'Maw in the late game. We're talking about the Morgana Black Shield. We're talking about the whimsy potential to speed him up if he's at the front line. Yeah, exactly. Check your watch. There's more to go. We're only talking about the second champion here. We've got the second shield coming through. I mean, triple shield we're talking about between Janna.
Most of his health bar can be shield by the end of it. I mean, he builds a Bloodthirster. That might be overkill.
He can have some extra effective health with the Wild Growth. He can have some healing from Janna. Jarvan can throw down a flag. We're on 5.3, so that still gives him attack speed.
Yep.
So,
well, it only had the armor removed.
Okay,
believe,
so yeah, absolutely.
So it's still fine.
So Jarvan's at full power, I guess, can put down the attacks with so many innate. I mean, his buff bar on his
yeah, it's going to be overflowing.
It's going to be overflowing. Like they might have to
that might be how the Chiefs win. Just his whole screen is buff.
Is there a limit to how many buffs you can give someone? Like if they pick up Zeke's, will just not go through because he's already so well looked
strong,
after.
Man. Yeah, maybe.
But it's all.
But
it's all in on King. And
yeah,
let's track back King. Like we've been super impressed with his performance. One thing you can say about him: super aggressive player. So he's on Kog'Maw, a champion that at least until the grouping phase, has to play pretty passively. At level 6, you can start harassing with your ultimate and do some good trading in lane, but especially early, he doesn't have the same outplaying potential as some of those escape carries we've seen. He's not going to be the Graves we saw last time out where he could flash shockwaves and be really aggressive. That's not what we're expecting from King. So he's going to have a different string to his bow. And I'm not saying he can't do it. He's been wonderful so far this season. But anything goes wrong in laning phase. He's against Radio. We're talking about the established veteran of the AD carry position, maybe the most well-known Oceanic player, against this young upstart who's, people, when they're doing those ratings, those rankings, people are talking about King versus Radia. It's a toss-up. You either look at, you either look at history or look at current performance, and King's been really impressing us. Still, they're fully committing to him.
Oh, they most certainly are. And the interesting thing here as well about this AD carry matchup, just before we hop into the game, is Radia had his opportunity to pick up that hyper carry. He went for the Jinx, sort of the long range, a lot more AoE potential in this Kog'Maw, and now it's King's turn to try his hand at this sort of ultimate hyper carry champion in Kog'Maw. A little bit more single target, but massive tank bust potential. And you have to think that with a Maokai there who was... He tends to become immortal, let's be honest, in the late game. We saw Swiper on him in the last game, and that was just terrifying. And if that happens again, it might be good night here for the Direwolves. But we are onto the Rift, ladies and gentlemen, with the Chiefs taking on Direwolves. The Chiefs are going to be on our blue side for this matchup, of course. The second time we've seen them, and now switching sides. And we'll see whether that side is going to change anything here as the Direwolves try and answer back for their early loss.
Yeah, what a tasty reverse matchup to kick off the OPL second round, you could say, between these two top teams. Super exciting stuff. You look at Chiefs' lineup, it's much similar to the lineup we saw last game. Of course, Maokai and Lee Sin, that hasn't changed at all in terms of the top side of the map. What you can confirm, though, is the Chiefs' same sort of plan. They want to pick up the early dragons, they want to pick up the early turrets and rotate. They do have a bit more late-game hyper carry, as we see them invading. But in the late game, so much available to the King. If he can get a certain item threshold, the amount of shield is going to be insane for Chiefs to kill him.
Yeah, and beautiful warding here from the Direwolves. They spot all the members of the Chiefs out as they're walking through their jungle. The dive probably not going to be looked for here onto Perfections, because, of course, if that Dark Binding lands, there's going to be a very uncomfortable member of the Chiefs getting killed by a tower, you have to think.
Worth noting, he has not skilled an ability yet. Smartly, of course, waiting till the laning phase starts. Black Shield might be his saver, but Chiefs, they've got all the vision down. Doesn't look like they're going to go for anything too crazy, but maybe even the 4-man proxy. Who's to say that they've forgotten about Perfection? Maybe this is still their big plan.
Oh my goodness. If this happens, I'm going to be very, very confused. But it looks like a lane swap is most definitely what is in the minds of the Chiefs, as Radia is going to be here on the top side. Has actually forged a pact here with Rosie as well, but Rosie, of course, not going to be in that lane, just going to be helping with this red steal. And that is going to be Soul Strikes immediately moving over and trying to start off at the red buff on the opposite side. So smart pathing here, making sure that Soul Strikes doesn't get himself too buffed.
So let's dissect what's happened. We haven't seen a lot of lane swaps in the OPL, but we see Radius 1v1 against Morgana. That's what we've ended up with. And again, what have we said about Morgana consistently? Low pressure in lane, low kill potential. So the hyper carry is going to farm very happily in a 1v1 lane. It's going to be over-leveled in terms of experience. It's basically nothing Perfection can do. It feels a lot like the Hecarim versus Morgana matchup, but with the range and the Chiefs. I mean, they're juggling the turret. They're going in.
Yeah, there's actually the Flash Twisted Events come through. First blood almost instantly as Swiper happily tanks it up. And we were talking about whether or not he was going to get camped. Of course he is.
Wonderful play from the Chiefs. This is such a different feel than the OPL has shown us so far. They're not stopping with Perfection. They want to run him down.
They certainly do, and it's the fast push strategy on here as well. It's been a long time since we've seen this here in the OPL, but it's going to be happening once again, and the Chiefs going to continue with that gold lead and maybe just trying to accelerate this game to the point where King never going to have that opportunity to be that hyper carry for his team that they need.
And when we ever talk about these kind of late-game focus comps, whether it's a Jax top lane, whether it's a real hyper carry, there's always the potential that the game, as you say, is over before you can put into effect the grouping strategy. If you show up as a grouped 5 without enough items and levels to actually support this Kog'Maw, the whole comp falls apart. It's going to be a trade of turrets, you'd have to think. We see Kog'Maw's pushing very aggressively in the bottom lane. Of course, no teleports have come through. Maokai's never shown his face in the bottom lane. But the Morgana especially is going to be hugely smarting for items.
Oh, yeah, and you can see Raider actually farming a little bit more effectively here, unharassed in his lane, as opposed to King in the same position here on the bottom side. That is going to be able to catch right back up as Radiant maybe going to be moving towards a more standard laning situation now. And what do you sort of do? When you go for this fast push strategy, do you involve your whole team in the next tower push effort?
I mean, there's kind of different schools of thought. Like Direwolves, for example, when they saw 4 men revealed in the top, they could have gone for the early dragon because they have the Bio-Arcane Barrage from Kog'Maw. It does help them take the dragon. They could have trade tanked and picked it up knowing they committed 4 men to the top wave. You look down Chief's lineup, they do have 2 quite good ranged auto attackers, but not the best turret damage. Soulstrike's in trouble.
Yeah, Spooks has caught him out here. Black Shield not going to be enough. Can't even go to a tower. Spooks just flashes after him. There's the sapling as well. Pounded into the ground with the Tempest. And Spooks with his 2nd kill of the game.
And nothing Morgana can do. And that's what Direwolves hope is not repeated as we move into this game. As Morgana, a strong laner, a safe laner, her lane's basically been destroyed already. She has no turret to retreat to. As in the top, Spook's not had enough. He's going in again.
Oh my goodness, that juke into the Resonating Strike was beautiful as Perfections needs to wait for the Dark Binding cooldown, and Spooks just not letting Perfections have a good time, blowing the flash there to get out of the way of the Sonic Wave intelligently, because I think that would have been his life.
In the bottom lane, the King's taking a lot of damage. He might fall.
Yeah, the heal's going to be used there. That's going to save him. Right here. Oh my goodness, those couple of Rens might have been enough, but it was already on cooldown. As the Chiefs continue the pressure here on the bottom side. And Rosie, you have to think that could have been started by a Zenith Blade coming through from this Leona as well. It's a very scary combination if you want to be hard engaging onto your opponent's Chuffer. That Howling Gale going to go wide. Oh, the arrow comes through as well. The slow is going to come down. That's a max range Zenith Blade, but Rosie just gets a flash for it.
You have to mention, this is Chuffer we're talking about. It's one thing we haven't talked about is this, the prototypical engage support, the mid laner, the AD carry who's now converted to support. He's on a disengaged champion. This is not something we'd usually expect out of Chuffer. He's been so much at home on Annie for more the engaged style of support. Struggling a bit in trades there. And coming back to your point about it being on cooldown, Radiant actually had Rend available. Wanted to secure that last auto attack to guarantee the Rend kill. Of course, so hard to estimate the amount of damage you put out. So it was a smart flash from King just out of range to get the execute. He'll be kicking himself for not maybe taking a risk, but the result, King lives.
He does 9 CS behind at this stage though, and of course doesn't have that assist to his name. We've got Dragon being looked at here from Chuffer, just trying to get some wards down as Soulstrikes clears out this mid lane for Sharp as he comes back. Very even here in the middle of the map. But Swiffer with a slight item advantage coming back to base. Does have that Fiendish Codex as well. Going for the Merlinomicon in response to the Athene's Unholy Grail that does seem to be the pickup here for Sharp, although he might be going for a Mikhail's because, of course, they are very focused on keeping this Kog'Maw alive.
Spooks has actually snuck into the bottom lane.
Oh, he's going to find Chuffer, but doesn't have the kick. Just going to safeguard over the top of him just for style points. Doesn't land the Sonic Wave, though. Unfortunately, as Radiant makes his way back to the lane and says, Spooks, what are you doing here, buddy?
We're talking about advantage. Perfection actually only just dinged 4 in the top wave. Finally, the wave is pushing into him. Direwolves, the jungler in particular, Soulstrikes, needs to put up some green walls just to give some defensive cover to perfection. It's another first 10 minutes of camp coming out from the Chiefs. And Morgana, a safe laner, still with Black Shield to walk out of a lot of CC, is 13 CS behind a Maokai that just started laning about 2 minutes ago.
Yeah, one thing I guess we could mention is the fact that Spook's behind a little bit in the farm just because Soulstrikes has been rushing towards that level 6, trying to get that Cataclysm as soon as possible. But first Dragon easily taken just right under the noses of Direwolves. They didn't even care. Chiefs just well in control of this game at this stage.
A kill is about 13 CS, so worth noting he's actually ahead in gold by about 400, so he's doing just fine as Spooks. Doesn't have as much experience, but Lee Sin in the early levels does a lot of damage, so he's doing just fine. It's the Morgana that's smarting. It's Perfection again, who's kind of struggling for relevance, and the team needs to work together to help him. They tried leaving him to the Wolves. That's again a bad pun, but leaving him to the Wolves last time, and there's nothing he could do when on the Rumble against Aurelia. In this situation, it's not the matchup so much as the map movement coming out from the Chiefs. They need to give him some wards, just help him get to a relevant position by 20 minutes, not by 30 or 40.
Yeah, but at this stage, Swiffer have been very quiet. Do you think that it's going to be sort of when the Chiefs decide to move around this map, utilize their comp that is very strong towards this middle stage of the game, of course, before the Direwolves really start grouping up and utilizing King after he's got that Trinity Force, maybe even that Blade of the Ruined King in order to do some damage? Do they need to be utilizing this Ahri in that sort of mid-game that is approaching?
See, the issue with Ahri against Lulu is that Lulu is by far the best defensive laner. She does have offensive harassment. She has so much wave clear. She has so many ways to disengage and all in between the polymorph, the ultimate on herself to add health, the disengage coming out from the Q. Actually, we see the Fate's Calls used in the bottom lane, but just kind of zoning coming through onto King.
Yeah, King just going to take that Eye of the Storm and be A-OK. Radier does have that Vampiric Scepter, looking for the dagger next item. We'll see whether he goes for the Hurricane after the Vamp Scepter or whether he's going to decide more of a C&J type play, go for that Blade of the Ruined King early on. We'll see, of course. A lot of schools of thought on this Kalista.
With the Lee Sin Ahri combination, to come back to your previous question, they want to be creating picks. They have some good offensive wards down. But Lulu, it's not just her kit, as I described, that's defensive, that keeps her alive and an all-in. She has so much wave clear that she really punishes you if you get a failed roam. If you fail roam on a Lulu, she's going to half-health your turret. So they're looking for their spots. They're waiting for maybe the laning phase in bottom lane to end before they get the real purchase out of this Swiffer Ahri.
Yeah, speaking of which, Swiffer actually taking the worst side of a trade there in the middle lane as Sharp, using his Whimsy very effectively, is still down by 2 CS, but that is nothing. Absolutely nothing. This mid lane is most definitely a wash. Just farming it out are these two champions. It's the top side of the map that we see the largest discrepancy, and the bottom side starting to catch up here as well. Zenith Blade lands here as King. He gets forced to use that flash yet again. The Ren comes in and Radier just bounces out of the way. Spooks, he isn't even finished yet as Chopper's taking a lot of damage under his tower. Sonic Wave, he tries to bait out the Juke but doesn't quite get there. Dragon Rage, of course, unavailable, and Spooks has to be a little bit careful.
And worth noting, at the same time in the mid lane, everything blown except Swiffer's flash. And again, very close health bars by both. But yes, we saw the Q come through from Spooks. He wanted to get that nice little exclamation point onto the trade. But more importantly, Kalista picks up the gold.
Yeah, that is a very big deal here as well. We'll see what Radier decides to put in his pocket as he heads back to base. 20 CS now the advantage, and with a kill on top of that one. That is a lot of work that he's done. Of course, Perfection's been left alone for the last few minutes, and of course, being Perfections, he's going to be completely caught back up in that farm.
And he's definitely not used to the lack of attention he's received for a few minutes this game. The first 5-6 minutes...
He's probably upset.
He was living up to the dream. Maybe he thinks that it's a bit of a conceit thing. It's like, oh, so much attention for me. Yeah. Maybe he looks at it that way, but I think he'll enjoy the downtime to be able to farm a bit.
Absolutely, and he's going to be doing just that, of course. That Tormented Soil almost maxed out. So he's going to be able to use that. Does have an extra point in that Dark Binding, in the Dark Binding, just to make sure that it's going to be lowering its cooldown, doing a little bit more damage as he comes in. Does still have that teleport available, as do both of our top laners. Relic Shield going to be used to pick up that tank minion in the mid lane, and Trailblazer going to be used to try and clear out this wave. But, oh, looks like Soul Strike's in a lot of trouble. Going to flash very early as Swiper came round. Shuffer going to try and throw out a Howling Gale. Does try and keep this tower alive as Charm does go wide, but this is going to be the outer turret in the mid lane being brute forced here, but Vengeful Maelstrom going to be used by Swiper to keep himself out of trouble, and the Chiefs, they're going to be A-OK, just able to take down the last outer turret here in this game, and we know that they love to get tower pressure. They love to have control of the map by getting rid of those obstacles, so look to see them now put that pressure far forward in vision, most likely. That is a max range charm that Swiffer landed beautifully onto Chopper.
The Chiefs are a naturally proactive team. That's just how they play. They're always, there's lots of teams that are trying to go for the late scaling and then getting punished by the Chiefs lineups, but this is to a different degree. This is lane swapping. This is a 4-man, 2-minute turret dive. This is them playing super aggressive, both respecting the potential of the Direwolves and respecting the comp they're against. This comp in the late game is an oppressive Kog'Maw comp, where Kog'Maw can even go to the front of a fight, basically eat damage, you know, harass with his long range, potentially have the red buff, get a slow. It's almost Kog'Maw getting the picks, doing the damage, being the front line, because there's so many shields and inherent tankiness coming out from the support stats that there's just so little options to lock him down the late game. The best way, as you've discussed a few times this game, is to play around him and end the game before that happens. So just arcing up that natural playstyle, taking out the outer ring of turrets about 12 minutes into the game, They're probably going to be able to control the Dragon very comfortably. They definitely had a mid-game comp, but they've just doubled down on it in such an impressive fashion.
Yeah, Radiant happily dancing around these minions here in the bottom side. But another thing that I want to mention is the fact that Kalista, she's no slouch in the late game as far as hypercarry potential. Has a lot more AoE coming through as well. So if Radiant manages to get in amongst these fights, I mean, you get rid of Direwolf's augmentation on that Kog'Maw, it's going to be quite difficult for him, and it's going to be another dragon here taken for the Chiefs. There is a ward on it, so Direwolves do know that the second dragon was taken, but Chief's going to get another one for free.
It's worth noting, though, that Kog'Maw does his damage not through skill shots, but through 800 range auto attacks. So even though Kalista has hyper mobility, she still can't win in a straight trade of damage in the late game with his Biocane Barrage steroid and just the amount of range he has. So even though she's a hyper carry, she's a different flavor of hyper carry, but to use her in a fast push comp, which is what this effectively has been as we see, you know, big damage coming onto the inner bot lane turret, is a different style of League of Legends, but it's just opened up by their strategic adaptations at level 1, something we haven't seen in the OPL so far.
And Swiper again going, he really likes this new Righteous Glory build. Picking up the Spectre's Cowl now, of course, building to match his lane opponent, and of course that double AP comp that's going to be coming out from the Direwolves. Of course, more of a triple AP comp because King's going to be doing a lot of magic damage as well with that Bioarcane Barrage, as Swiper going to make his way back here to the top side and eats a Dark Binding.
And the thing about the Righteous Glory build is usually it's people completely rushing that item, you know, just basically finishing it at the 14, 15-minute mark of the game. It's not an expensive item to build once you have the Catalyst completed. But Swiper, I mean, at least last game, Catalyst into Frozen Heart, like didn't even look to finish the Righteous Glory, just wanted combat stats for the first fight. Realistically, Direwolves is basically 100% magic damage, especially early before we see, say, the Infinity Edge or the next big AD purchase come through from King. So it's smart to pick up magic resist early, has the health and regen coming through from the Catalyst. It's a team fight build, and Swiper, he's given up on lane the last 2 games. He just wants to get team fight ready as soon as possible because his team is grouping at 15, 10. I mean, at this point, it was 2 minutes into the game they were grouping. They're just grouping so much that the other team just never gets time to settle.
Yeah, it's true, and you can see Spooks again putting the pressure on over by these Raptors. Swiffer, of course, very close by. Spooks and Swiffer spend a lot of time with one another, especially on the Rift. Darwell's going to try and sweep out and check for any wards. They do miss the one there in that Raptor camp. And Soul Strikes, you can see, he's terrified to enter his own jungle right now.
With a lot of reason. He does have the ranged ability to check brushes with the flag, so that will keep him alive for now. He's actually going for the Skirmisher's Saber. You have to mostly to negate the damage coming through from the Kalista. Looks like he's taking it on his back to try and trivialize the Radiant and team fights.
Yeah, but you can see Chiefs again with a beautiful rotation now to this topside inner turret. Perfection's trying to clear out the wave as desperately as he can, but the next one comes in. Dark Binding goes wide, and this inner turret, it's gone before the Direwolves even managed to react.
Yeah, they need some reactive shot calling here, Direwolves. They're letting these turrets fall without rotating any of their wave clear. Kog'Maw's wave clear, not wonderful, but they've got Morgana Lulu. They've got a lot of ranged wave clear that can come through. And of course, Lulu, not many champions barring maybe Sivir move between lanes as fast as a Lulu. They should be able to react to these pushes from Chiefs and at least hold off. And so much Global Gold going across. Of course, Global Gold, we'll look at the supports. 700 gold is the advantage for Leona. That's purely from Global Gold.
Yeah, and so that's just all of those turrets going down as well now, considering the change with that dragon, which Chiefs now have a monopoly over, you have to say.
Well, there's just no room for Direwolves to get. At this point, an aggressive ward for the Direwolves will be at the dragon. It'll be at the halfway mark of the map. They're never going to get anywhere near the enemy side of the base because this game is being completely played at their Raptors, at their red buff, at their inner turrets. And you're correct, the Chiefs, you can see Spooks happily farming away the enemy Raptors with no vision whatsoever required because he's got no pressure.
Now, the question is here, because there's a lot of standing gold, of course, it is a 4,000 gold lead at this stage approximately. But do the Direwolves sort of, is their mindset, okay, this is fine, we're at a deficit, but we've got the Kog'Maw, we've got the late game potential, just farm it out. You can see their lanes, they've all equalized, apart from maybe that bottom side because Radiant just managed to do a whole lot of farming. But, you know, are they just more than happy to sit back and let their team scale?
I think realistically, they're talking loss minimization like you are. They're talking, all right, we've still got the comp. We've only put away 4 kills. It's not a huge gold lead. The turrets are not helping us. We've got this in the late game. But how many teams, I mean, even the first game of the OPL.
That crit was gigantic coming through onto Radier. He was almost 3-shot by King.
Yeah, you can see King does have that damage potential. It will come, but to answer your question again, it was Legacy on the first match of the OPL who picked a late game comp against the Chiefs, and they were punished for it. And so many teams have done the same thing and been punished. So how risky is it to choose that reactive option, to have that reactive shot calling when the Chiefs have answered all teams that have tried to do that so far?
Speaking of which, look at this catch onto Sharp. Wild Growth going to be used onto him as Soul Strikes comes in trying to get the catch. King, he gets knocked up, but Soul Strikes gets booted into his face. A double knock-up, though, to come through here on the backside. Perfections picking up Radier, though. That is catastrophic for the Chiefs, as a lot of their damage now missing from this fight. Chuffer so incredibly low. Rosie wants to get something done. The bloodthirsty support himself, but he takes a Dark Binding for it. Soul Strikes wants to come back, but Swiffer picks it up. King gets Rosie, and he manages to pick up Swiper as well. 1-1-2 now on this Cogmore. Of course, he didn't manage to pick up that last kill. It was Sharp, but the Direwolves answering back beautifully in that fight.
And Direwolves fans are hoping that's a preview for some of the subsequent fights in this game. If you hopefully we'll get the replay and be able to see just how aggressively Cogmore was able to position in that fight. Remember, this is the longest range AD carry. Usually he's fighting behind a whole load of tanks, but that's the difference. When you run all these supporty choices, Sharp eventually takes a big burst of damage, but King is able to position so aggressively because of the amount of peel options he has. He's completely the damage frontline for this team, and he does not need to hide behind his supports because of how much damage he's doing. It's a very, very long fight. King's low health, but the re-engage will be the big win here for the Direwolves. So we keep rolling. And so eventually the Dark Binding comes onto Rosie. But again, King, he's in front of 3 members of his team because that's how this Cogmore comp operates. It's Cogmore enabled by his team, not held back by the tanks or the divers of the enemy team.
Yeah, it was beautiful play. Perfection's about to have that Soul Shackles back up. Does have teleport here as well if the Direwolves want to start something. Is going to use it in order to join this fight. Dark Binding not going to find its mark, and Direwolves looking just to take over this dragon, and the Ren stacks actually run out here, so Soul Strike's able to pick up the first dragon for Direwolves, and we'll see whether they start a fight. Swiper already at half health as he tries to engage. Soul Strike picks up the kill and does spooks here, and Swiper's dead as well. The whole front line has been destroyed as King is rocketing forward. Radier trying the best that he can to get the heck out, and my goodness, the Direwolves, they know exactly when their power spikes are, and I think it's pretty soon. Yeah, the grouping has started, and you can see just the amount of power from this comp. King is the front line, King is the damage. King isn't the tank, but he has so many different statistics coming through from this support. Swiffer needs to watch himself, though. Yeah, Swiffer, he does get caught on that Tormented Soil, uses that Spirit Rush in order to get himself the heck out of there, as Radier going to be... Oh my gosh, was that the tower? As Kathy and Surprise not going to be able to finish off Radier here as well, as manages to get their answering kill onto Cogmore. Swiper's teleported in from the side. Perfection's going to use the Dark Binding. Maybe not the choice that Swiper wanted there, as Morgana going to use that Black Shield, Dark Binding, sorry, in order to get himself back okay. But Rosie with the max range Zenith Blade. Wild Growth there, but it's not going to be enough. Radier doesn't get the kill. It's going to be Swiper, but look at the Solar Flare and the layering of CC. We were just saying that the Direwolves were playing beautifully. Never count out the Chiefs. So the thing about a Protect the Cogmore comp is that when you take a few too many turret hits and then don't respect the Ren stacks that are already on top of you and get bursted down, your team comp falls apart because everyone's already used a lot of their long cooldown supportive abilities on you, and your team comp literally completely revolves around you. So we've kind of seen the best of Direwolves comp and kind of where it falls apart. The Chiefs, they've done the first 15 minutes of this game to stop the grouping phase from ever happening. We've seen, even with the underdone items, even before the items are really overtuned for this Cogmore, Direwolves comp and their synergy around team fights is almost oppressive. So they need to be, both teams need to be so careful, because the next engage, if it goes landside in either advantage, probably sets the tone for the game. Oh yeah, and we'll see whether the Direwolves can manage to actually pick up some objectives off their next fight, of course. Oh, Soul Strike's getting caught by a charm here, but does have a lot of friends around. Orb of Deception not going to find its mark, but they didn't manage to pick up any turrets here. They had a couple of outer turret options that they could have potentially rotated to. Of course, did get the Dragon, but is that enough here? Do they need to be getting more from these one fights?
They just, I mean, to be honest, like even though this is so risky against a proactive team like the Chiefs, they need to lose the minimum. You'd have to say with the picks, they've started to arrest the global gold lead that Chiefs had, but they need to actually answer with their own turrets, as you say, to start just evening it up. Because if this is even at 30 minutes, at 40 minutes, it's going to look great for Direwolves. But if the next big objective, whether that's the Baron or another round of outer turrets come through for the Chiefs, there is the potential that Radier and his team get too big for even the amazing synergy between champions and the Direwolves to come together.
But if we have a look here back to the farm, as Perfections, he's now ahead by 23 after that horrible time that he had earlier on, and he's evened up the scoreline here as well. 1, 2, and 3 now on this Morgana. Hasn't been getting nearly the attention that he wanted, but he was the one that managed to get Radier out of the fight. Followed him with that Soul Shackles in that Dragon Pit and managed to pick that one up. Sharp going to get caught by the Solar Flare, though. Beautiful catch from Rosie. The Wild Growth is available. Sharp tries to escape, but doesn't make it out as 3 men, probably enough to get rid of a Lulu.
It looks so easy and so effective, this comp, when they're grouped, but when not grouped, and especially we'd already talked about the fact that Direwolves have never been able to get the awards in. Soul Strikes, though, is caught. He's dead as well.
Yeah, Spook's sort of kicking him out just for the fun of it because the charm was perfect from Swiffer. And the inner turret, it's going to fall down now as well as Direwolves. You have to say, they were just caught with their pants down there a little bit.
Well, Direwolves recognized they needed to group earlier than expected, even before the big power spikes were done, because their strength is as a 5. Their strength is not as a 4, certainly not in a skirmish as 2s. They're against strong skirmish champs, Ari, Leona, Lee Sin, some of the strongest skirmish champs in the game. And we saw how powerful they are grouped. I don't know why they're going solo farming the side waves, 1-1-1 across the map. They don't have the ward coverage to be able to do that safely, and there's so much pick potential on the Chiefs. They need to respect that. They need to be 5-man grouped, because that's the only way they're going to win this game.
The Chiefs, though, not now with the aggressive warding we were quite expecting. Direwolves managing to clear those out deep in their jungle. You can see there is a row of pinks very defensively placed here from the Direwolves, but you can see that Baron side very much in the hands of the Chiefs. As Radier now trying to clear out this Raptor camp. Does have that Blade of the Ruin King. You have to think that the Bloodthirst are going to be coming through second. Very, very helpful having a lot of lifesteal on this Kalista. Make sure you can stay up in the face of your opponents and just get all of that lifesteal happening and keep yourself alive.
You have to remember, though, that the front line of this Direwolves comp is Kog'Maw. It sounds so counterintuitive, but because you can empower that Kog'Maw so much, because he has some self-peel and then has so many supportive items, he's going to be the one at the front. He's the one Radier kind of has to break through, and he cannot stand up to all the support items and just the amount of trade damage Kog'Maw does. He's so strong from level 9 onwards once you pick up some attack speed to support that Biocane Barrage. I mean, the Infinity Edge and any big items that complement the Blade of the Ruin King is just completed will be kind of the death knell for Radier and trying to deal with that Kog'Maw. So again, grouped, I have to give it to Direwolves, but I mean, Chiefs have come back from big disadvantages. There's 7k gold ahead, we have to remember. And the Direwolves, they've already made some poor executions on their team comp already. They cannot afford another one.
Oh yeah, we'll see whether the Chiefs manage to get the gank situation that they're looking for, as the Direwolves just going to try and clear out vision here as well. Blade of the Ruin King, as you mentioned, going to be completed from Kog'Maw. So that's the 2-item spike here for this Voidling, as Soul Strikes gets caught by the charm. There's the Twisted Advance as well. He gets Wild Growth, but it's not going to be enough. Unstoppable Swiffer. There's the Fate's Call into Sharp here in the front line as Swiffer, another charm in this fight, picks up another kill for his team. And Radier, he secures that one. Dark Binding going to go wide, and the Chiefs just look so good in a team fight.
The Chiefs are by far the best Oceanic team at running these pick comps, but Direwolves, why is Soul Strikes there? Why is Soul Strikes so aggressively positioned when they don't have the ward coverage to support where he's at? They're not respecting all the lines CC coming through from Chiefs. And again, they had to use the Wild Growth. So many defensive abilities on this Jarvan. There was nothing left for the Kog'Maw. Their comp fell apart. They need to, again, double down, group, only move where they have vision, maybe even exclusive vision and pink wards. Okay, you give away dragons in that strategy, but this comp, it keeps falling apart because they haven't been able to get the correct ability usage so far.
It's been a little bit unfortunate. The Chiefs now able to pick up, I believe, their 3rd dragon of the game, if I'm not mistaken.
I believe it is, yep.
And this outer turret in the mid lane going to be the focus from Direwolves in response, as all the Chiefs were back in base. So going to be able to pick up a consolation prize here in the mid lane. With that extra movement speed, the Chiefs going to be very happy. This Dragon stacking up quite nicely for them. Direwolves now aggressively positioned in the enemy jungle, just trying to get some vision through. Flag and drag for Soul Strike's just going to help him on his way out. And outer turret might be picked up here on the top side as well. So proactive play coming through from the Direwolves, and this is exactly what they need to be doing. They need to be moving around as a team and forcing the Chiefs' hand. But if you force the Chiefs' hand, they're probably going to take your middle inhibitor.
And that's kind of the issue, is that committing 5 members to take an outer top turret that was full health is a false choice left for the Direwolves now. Either they can base quickly and hopefully keep up the turret, or the Chiefs can be smart, bluff going mid, and try and pick up an uncontested Baron. Only Morgana contest. She has the... Oh, well, she's in trouble.
Oh my goodness, and beautiful use of that Orbit Deception to get rid of the Black Shield as well. Perfections is dead, and so is the Baron. Of course, that Ren just did probably a potential of 7,000 damage, something stupid like that. As Radiant now 3-1-4 on this Kalista, playing fantastically, you have to say, as Swiffer going to clear out this top wave, congratulate himself by getting a little bit more gold. 6-0-2. And look, I know this is 5.3, Ari, but Swiffer is just so impressive on this champion.
Absolutely. She's still very strong. She's still such a great blind pick, because at the end of the day, skill matchup, it comes back in our vocabulary. That's what Ari excels in. When you pick the Lulu, you're only looking to split the lane and amp up a Cogmore, but they've never got the fights they've wanted to, barring those 2 very early in the game. And the rotations, you know, we're saying rotations so often you might think this is an LCK stream, but they've been really on point from level 1, holding down the Morgana so that she wasn't the level 6 force. She couldn't port in at the early dragons and, you know, be a pseudo Gnar and have a really devastating soul shackles. And then just the bluff in terms of going mid and then rotating straight to the Baron was genius from Chiefs. They're so good at this proactive shot calling. It's not just the pre-game plans, it's the experienced heads calling on the fly the objectives they're looking for, and they're getting everything they want, whereas Direwolves, they're left with tatters.
Certainly seems so thus far. They do have, you know, King with a lot of long-range wave clear with the Living Artillery and the Bioarcane Barrage, just the fact that he can shoot stuff from a long way away. That may help him out. The Glitterlance also there from Sharp. So is their stall potential going to be enough coming into this situation, or is it just going to be the Chiefs popping the Righteous Glory and just running straight in and saying, I don't care about a turret?
I mean, Maokai can potentially reach an item threshold where they can do that. It's not yet. He doesn't actually have a lot of health. He does have a lot of resists, but doesn't really have a health pool. He's only got the Righteous Glory, I believe it's the 300 health from that item. So tanking turrets, he'll be good at it, but it's not the massive 4,000 health Maokai we've seen in other games. So they're not really looking for the outright turret dive, and there's still, again, you have to respect the wave clear, disengage, and shields coming out from this Direwolves comp. Yeah. They're very hard comp to dive. I mean, you can get a pick, you get a Swiffer Charm on, for some reason, an overextended King. Sure, you can take down anything, but for now, the stall will be pretty real from the Direwolves.
They're going to try the best they can, of course. With Baron buff, things are going to be a little bit more difficult, as that little pool going to be helping Perfections out clearing this wave, and you can see, pretty difficult.
Yeah, full health turret still, of course, with the Janna Shield riding on top of it. Pushing mid, not a realistic option here for the Chiefs, and to be honest, they've actually taken every easy objective on the map. They've taken the Baron, there was no contest through for Direwolves. They've taken all the outer turrets. It's breaking this base, that's the kind of the big thing for Chiefs.
Yeah, Dark Binding actually going to find Swiffer here as well. Safeguard comes through. Soul Strike, though, is just going to get destroyed as Swiffer is quite low, as the turret is now going to be the focus from the Chiefs. They've got the pick that they want, as Swiffer going to use the last of his Spirit Rush in order to get the heck to safety, but everything's still on a knife edge here for both of these teams, as even with Soul Strikes dead, the Chiefs unable to make a decisive play.
It's only 32 minutes. It's actually only 15 seconds left on the death timer, so not a lot of time to capitalize. If we look in the bot lane, massive minion wave pushing out for the Direwolves, arresting the pressure of the big minion wave from the Chiefs up the top lane. So in terms of global pressure from the 6th man, pretty even across the board, and it's not the 60-second death timer to really capitalize on a 5v4. Swiffer was low, he had to back away. They can breathe and they can continue to farm, but the Dragons, they're at 3. Another one comes in a minute. You don't really see how Direwolves are going to get to that in the next minute. That's when the timer really starts in this game. The 5th Dragon could be the big turning point.
Oh, yeah, and you have to think that with that minion wave now having to be cleared out by a radio, it gave Perfections the opportunity to stop that slow push from coming through in that top side of the map, and Chiefs losing an opportunity there to potentially push something through.
Kog'Maw's finished the last Whisper. He's actually gone for Alacrity boots. You can see he needs that flat movement speed. You'd think he had enough support from his good friends Morgana, Lulu, and Janna. All of them not pretty familiar to the bot lane, but today being played across the map. But he just needs anything to be able to get those extra hits in. Again, if he's trading with Kalista, he'll win the trade sheerly because she'll get 1 or 2 or 3 auto attacks in, while he can get so many at such a long range that she can never disengage the fight because of the amount of speed and the range coming out from the Biocan Barrage. We haven't seen that 5-man team fight because the picks have been so effective from the Chiefs. They're starting to get defensive wards in, though, being cleared by Spooks as well. They just really need to stay in their base because, oh my goodness, Swiffer, those going in.
Oh, he misses the charm, though. Spirit Rush out of the way of the Cataclysm, and Swiffer's going to be okay, but so is King, and that's the main thing for the Direwolves. That was almost the catch of a lifetime.
But that's the catch that the Direwolves want. They want people to aggress on King when they have all their abilities ready to be layered on top of him. It's fine, because even though he'll fall low, there's so much healing, the wild growth, so many options, that he needs to be the one eating the picks, not Soul Strikes. They don't want to use any of their utility on their tank.
They are going to have to give up the 4th dragon here, though, as the Chiefs going to prepare for their 5th one coming through in the next 6 minutes, and that might be when the Chiefs can actually break the base. I mean, we're talking about this quite a lot, but Direwolves doing a fantastic job making sure their turrets stay standing next to their inhibitors.
This is such a counterintuitive comp. As the GE Tigers have been showing the way with this Kog'Maw comp in the LCK. It's all about Kog'Maw doing everything, you know, being at the front, eating the aggression. It's the reason why they've been falling down is because the picks have come onto Soul Strikes twice, once in the mid lane and then once close to the base. They don't want to use any cooldowns on that person. They need their Kog'Maw to be their frontline and have a decent item timing. Okay, he doesn't have the Infinity Edge they were hoping for, but he will be shredding any members of the Chiefs if he lasts long enough. So they just have to watch their positioning, get the defensive wards down, pinks if preferable, and ensure that any team fight happens on their terms, i.e. with the Kog'Maw, and just layering all their support on top of that cute little Void monster.
Speaking of the cute little Void monster, he is on his own here just a little bit. Not a lot of vision extended forward here for the Direwolves, so King has to be a little bit careful.
Lucky for him, no lane ward behind him, so they have to at least respect the potential of there being a load of supports in his pocket.
Yeah, but now they have finally made their way around, but Perfections might be caught out just a little bit. Doesn't have that Zhonya's Hourglass, and yeah, Perfections, you're dead, and Swiffer, you're legendary.
Again, every time they don't group, every time they disperse, picks come through and the Chiefs win a fight. And it might continue here. 35 seconds available. Chiefs, I don't think they can brute force down a big objective, but damned if they're not going to try.
And look at the decorations that have been set up here in the red side jungle of the Direwolves. Oh, there's the flash twisted event. Sharp gets exploded. Two-man knockout going to come through from Soul Strikes, but the fight is on for the Chiefs, and the Direwolves are running for their lives. The inhibitor goes down, and my goodness, they get the pick and they get the fight, and all over. The
flash twisted advance completely took Sharp off guard. They're not respecting ranges. They're not obviously timing that flash and knowing to respect the 900 range engage, not the 400 range engage from that twisted advance. They're going to pick up a second Baron from this. And again, this comp is so good because it stalls so well. But when you lose top inhibitor, a lot of that stall potential goes, and King, he's face-checking perhaps too much.
You got to be very, very careful. But as you mentioned, he's got a lot of support, and Swiffer in a lot of trouble. Doesn't have that Zhonya's Hourglass available. Orb of Deception going to be thrown over to the Baron, and is going to be able to secure the Baron for his team, but has to think twice before going that aggressive on the King.
Every time it works for the Chiefs is when they pick someone that's not King. Every time they pick King, the trade damage probably surprises them a little bit, but the question is, why is Perfection overextended in farming with no defensive wards to protect him? Why is Lulu too close to a Maokai? Like, they need to respect ranges and understand that their crown jewel, everything about their comp is King. But both kills happened with King not grouped.
Yep, that is the thing. As Void Staff going to be completed here from Swiffer as well. He has 4 huge items. Going for that Zhonya's is his next one, you have to think. And he is over 100 CS in the lead on his lane opponent, because of course Direwolves, they have to funnel all of the possible resources onto King.
Yeah, we shouldn't talk about gold. It's 5,800 gold advantage just for Swiffer.
Okay.
So that's 14,000 gold. A third of that goes to Swiffer's pocket. The Ahri is very strong. You have to wonder if there's enough support, even in abilities, to protect from the charm that's coming through. But the stall is back on. But Chiefs, they're very aggressively positioned.
They are. That top wave has been dealt with mildly from Perfections here on the top side. Eye of the Storm not going to be quite enough here as this tower is starting to take a lot of damage. Last Whisper was completed from Radier here as well. This is 4 items on top of this Kalista, who's doing a lot of work. Has to go very deep, but there's the Solar Flare only getting the slow onto Sharp as Sonic Wave finds its mark as well. Charm not going to find its way in, but you can see still getting damage on this tower. Radier able to get it down very, very low, and you have to think this next push could spell its end. As Swiper, he's just going to pop the ult and go straight forward. The inhibitor's just going to be taken, and the Chiefs, this is the time when they can just brute force, because of course those super creeps, they'd entered the base.
Yeah, absolutely. When this comp by the Direwolves is undone when they lose that first inhibitor because they don't have the same stall potential. They have to eventually respect the super minions pushing into top. We saw the engage. The engage potential came through from Rosie. Who was it on? Was it on that Cogmore? That's clearly protected the Cogmore comp, but no, they respect the comp they're against. They try to keep picking off Lulu to force the ult on herself or kill her during that stun duration. The Chiefs, they're practiced even against this kind of off-the-ball comp.
Oh, most definitely. And Baron now going to buff up that Siege minion. Radier, of course, going to be the one to tank the tower, and they're just going to protect this guy. Living Artillery is going to try and clear it out as quickly as they can, but a secondary wave going to be coming through, and the Chiefs have all of the power. Soul Strikes comes through, trying to force the engagement. He's immediately removed. Perfection's right up in that front line, trying to get the Soul Shackles, but he gets exhausted down. Radier dances around the fight, and Swiffer gets monsooned out. There's the... Oh my goodness, King, you're so dead. And Chuffer has to run back to the fountain. The last inhibitor, the teleport to come through from Swiper here as well. And you have to think this is now game over in favor of the Chiefs. A beautiful performance, knowing exactly what they had to do.
This was absolutely the best strategic performance of any team so far in the OPL. Unsettling this comp that the GE Tigers has popularized in such dramatic fashion from the level 1, from their rotation, from their insistence on looking on that pick on anyone except King. They were outthought by the Chiefs here, were the Direwolves.
Oh, it was just beautiful play, and making sure that they got all the picks that they needed, and Swiffer not playing overly aggressive in lane. He waited until he had an opportunity to make things happen, and then just did awesomely. Oh my goodness, his play was amazing that game. We've got a replay just to show you exactly how the Chiefs did it.
So we're going to see the replay. We'll roll the tape. Again, this is at the mid inhibitor. Again, it needs to be the engagements coming onto King, but King's at the back. Soul Strikes tries something, is dead instantly. There's no support ults to be used on him. That's not what they want to do. That's what they had to do. But Perfection, basically the 3 front lines are all already dead. King, he finally dies after living so long. But again, they unsettled this comp through strategic play. It was picking up that top inhibitor was such a big boon to them because we saw how good the stall was. But you know, with Perfection overextending, getting picked, that top inhibitor going down, the stall wasn't an option. And the Direwolves fell down. Yeah,
and yet again, the Chiefs just deciding to go for the let's camp Perfection strategy, and it's working out beautifully. This time, let's camp Perfections, get his tower, and then force him to be behind in farm for an incredibly long time. But ladies and gentlemen, we're only halfway through for our first day of the OPL, and of course, coming up, it's going to be Sudden Fear taking on Immunity, and we'll see whether Immunity can bounce back from a difficult first game.